do you think this basketball team will be better than last year's team? If you had to guess. I know it's a ton of new guys on the team too.
Yeah. I don't know about if we're going purely record-wise. I wouldn't expect it to be too much better just because I had an uncle text me right before saying, I already know first 2 minutes, it's going to be a bad basketball season. I could have told you that before, right? This is a team. The downfall of Chad Weiberg wanted to make sure he got the right guy. Because I remember sitting at NCAA wrestling tournament in Marshall, and he's about to pull his hair out because he's still waiting on OSU to make a coaching hire. And who's it going to be? And, he's watching airplanes and he's on the phone. And it's driving him crazy because they just kept taking their time. And you had all these people just keep hiring people at OSU. How do you? I'm going to ask Weiberg about it. He's like, I just wanted to take my time. I want to make sure I found the right guy because I think he was thinking long term. And usually you do that, it does hurt you more short term. So when Lutz was hired later, he wasn't able to really dive into the transfer portal as much as people would like. There wasn't as much talent left, nor is anyone. We remember Boynton's comments last year. There's not money to go around at people, and they just had to buy out Boynton, so there's even less money to go around. And then pay to have another decent coach come. So the money was thin. He also wanted to find not only talent, but guys that matched his. He wanted defense. He wanted guys who really pushed the ball. He needed some shooters. There were the shooters on the team. We need some big guys, and big guys are hard to come by, especially late in the game. And there was a time when Marshall was wondering, I don't know if they're going to have a big man at this point. Like, they really need a big man. And I'm pretty sure they had to go to another country, I think, to find a big man. And so I do think it'll be a struggle. The mix of that with, I think people forget, in this conference realignment, we think of how much stronger the SEC got with adding teams like OU and Texas, and how much better the Big Ten got by adding theoretically USC, but Washington and Oregon. But now the Big 12 adds Arizona. You already added Houston last season. Those are really good perennial powerhouses you have in this conference now that OSU has to deal with. You can think of back some of the teams we were talking about earlier that were pretty good OSU teams, and they may perform like this one does just because of the type of teams that they're playing. It is going to be, every week, once conference play starts, every game is going to be like a, holy cow, this is a tough game. And so that's what stinks for the rebuilding. As Steve Lutz starts this rebuilding year, is the gauntlet that he has to try to build a team while enduring and winning enough games to keep a job and a fan base hopeful as well. It's a gauntlet that he has to endure while going through all this change in the Big 12.
Yeah, and to your point, that was a great recall because I don't think I asked you, hey, we're going to talk basketball roster for this, and yeah, you pulled it out. And Drija Vukovic, is what I'm going to say, or Vukovic, is from, of course, Belgrade, Serbia. I did not pronounce that flawlessly because he's not from the United States, unfortunately.
You know how I knew that?
I know. How?
Because I read pistolsfiringblog.com.
Ah, where you guys put out an article, I'm assuming? Yeah. No. Or Marshall wrote something. That's I love it. All those links to Pistols Firing Blog will be down in the description, of course. But I will say there's quite a few names here reading on the roster where I'm going, okay, the first guy I recognize here off of the half of the team is Bryce Thompson. And then, okay, there's Connor Dow, but that's, if you're really following Oklahoma State basketball last year, that's how you remember him. And then Jamon Keller, Thompson and Keller, I think, are the household-ish names. And then Dow, I would say, is a name that some know, but it's the guy doing a podcast here about Oklahoma State basketball, not necessarily the common Oklahoma State fan who's like, hey, everyone's talking about the Rowdy. What's going on? I just think there's part of it as with that as well. Now I want to pivot a little bit here and talk to you about some wrestling. So, of course, Coach David Taylor is competing right now, or at least maybe he's stopped competing for a little bit. He's done with his current competition status for the Olympics. Am I right here for 2020? 8. What's he competing for right now? Because he's on a math right now, right?
Well, he just got back. He just got back from Albania, competing in the World Championships, and he got a bronze medal, which is kind of wild to talk about a a coach competing and winning a world bronze medal against a stacked bracket. Like, I know, again, bronze is a big deal when you're outside of when I've been covering OSU wrestling for 10 years, whatever I have now. Bronze doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but it's a huge deal. I mean, he has 5 or 6 world medals that he has. He has Olympic gold medal, a couple world titles. That's the first time he's actually finished outside the top 2 in a world competition, either the Worlds or the Olympics. So he's back for that. He had told us before he was going that was his last competition. He had told us that once before. When he got the job, he just kind of subtly mentioned like he was done competing. He told us that when he took the job, though, that Chad Weiberg and administration thought he was still going to compete because he mentioned something about retiring, and they're like, "Oh, we thought you were still going to compete while you're here." Like, he had just was a match away from making the Olympic team for the second time. He got upset, and that guy who upset him went to the Olympics. And so that's kind of what ultimately led him to Stillwater, and that was kind of just about his sign that he was going to hang it up. Kind of got the competitive fire again, being in the new college room and these new guys, and he kind of got the itch again, which is crazy when you're so good at something, and he just kind of woke up one day and was like, you know what, I might go compete to be the best in the country today. And so theoretically, I mean, a couple weeks later, he comes out, and there were rumors that he was going to. I was like, I don't know, I didn't hear anything. And then sure enough, he goes to the U.S. trials. He wins the whole daggum thing. At a new weight, he went up a weight. And then he goes to Albania and wins the bronze medal. So he did tell us before that was his retirement. He didn't plan on it. He was very emotional after he won that bronze medal, and they introduced him and kind of thanked him there. I mean, he's a legend in wrestling. He's almost John Smith-esque. He doesn't have 2 gold medals, but he does have one to his name. But the impact he's had on this younger generation that he's now recruiting and the guys in the room right now, I mean, that's their John Smith. I mean, if you're an OSU fan or a wrestling fan, you have, David Taylor posters probably up in your wall, or Jordan Burroughs or guys like that. But he's one of those guys where you're going to have the picture or the poster on his wall. So it's a big deal. And so, yeah, I mean, that it's just kind of surreal, especially for the non-wrestling fans to know that that's even a possibility of a coach still competing, and here he won the world medal. So as far as we know, he says that's it. Who knows? I mean, he's in his 30s now, so that's kind of up there to start competing in that kind of style, especially when wrestling's weird where you're not regularly doing it. On top of all the day-to-day chores of full-time coaching, you also would have to prepare for, there's world championships in a year and this world championships, and you don't have the Olympics again until 2028. So who knows what his body's going to be like in 4 years as well. But he says that's it, but to go off like he did as a head coach to win a bronze medal is pretty incredible for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. And we are recording this on, I almost said March, but we are recording this on November 4th, to be clear. So I want to ask you, when does wrestling season start? I know football season now has got to be in the rear view for a lot of fans.
Yeah. November 15th will be their first duel. So was that next week on a Friday? They go to Utah Valley. And then the first home duel will be November 22nd against Wyoming. So that'll be the start of, it'll be the first time in 33 years that there's been a duel at Gallagher Arena that John Smith was not the coach. So that'll kind of be our first time to see a little thing. My wife asks, they always come out to beautiful people. I don't know if you've ever been to a duel, and that's kind of a big deal. And it just kind of, there's a certain thing about it. She's like, are they still going to come out to that? And I don't know. Like, you don't know what changes. He mentions there might be a subtle tweak to the singlets, and so you don't know what all is going to happen, or just the style of a lot of change. And so I'm excited for that duel to see what this new era will look like. Not that I hated the last era or anything, but just change can be exciting when you got someone like David Taylor and as passionate and fiery as he is with things right now. Just to see what he has up his sleeve is exciting to see get going, especially because it feels like, even though he's just hired in May, I feel like we've been waiting for this guy to coach a duel for a long time now.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember too much, but I went to Oklahoma State for 6 years. So I will say, for the 4 years that you and I were students together, I was the DJ for every wrestling match. So I remember playing Beautiful People every single time. Yeah. I got some compliments from one of our professors, our old professors, Ray Murray, on playing a lot of rock music, but is when we played, I think it's when we had to do it, against Iowa, and we ended up losing. It was like a packed house and stuff. plus the total team score. I want to say it was 2017 or 2018, kind of that last year we were in college. But anyways, how are we going to do in wrestling for the whole season here, and kind of as it goes to Big 12 championship stuff as well? How do you think we'll do?
Great. I mean, a Big 12 title is definitely, it's expected though at Oklahoma State, right? Last year they finished second, and it was kind of like a disappointment. I mean, they're like, oh, John Smith lost it because he finished his second at Big 12s, which is crazy the difference because we're talking about Mike Gundy being invincible with one conference title in 18, 19 years. And so those are expected, but I think you can expect OSU to get back into the top three. Penn State is just incredible. I mean, it's not fair the level that they're at, so it would take a lot of time for him to reach that, and I think he could. If anyone can, it would be him at this point just because they made a big splash hire, and that's what it was going to take to reach a team like Penn State, especially because Kel Sanderson's only getting older as well. But yeah, I expect them to be a top three kind of team competing up there with Iowa and Ohio State and those Big Ten teams. I'm not saying a miraculous national championship, but just his name alone has brought in a lot of talent, and it's perfect to have a guy like that in college sports today because you can make immediate impacts. You're not just recruiting freshmen now that can help you 2 or 3 years down the road. Right off the bat, you're bringing in a guy like Wyatt Hendrickson, who's a 2-time All-American and could very well be the best heavyweight in the country from Air Force at heavyweight. And so, and just a good dude. He's been fun to get to know. He was a blast to watch when he was at Air Force. You know, we got to watch him at some national tournaments and at the Big 12 tournament the last 3 or 4 years. And so you bring guys like that. Dean Hamilton is a multiple-time All-American. He got 3 transfers that he brought in that all of them have, finished All-American more than once. So definitely a deep, stacked lineup for your first time. And obviously, even before he gets here, OSU is going to have a lot of talent on that lineup either. It's not like he was handed he's not Steve Lutz taking over a program. No knock on Mike Morton, but kind of a program limping that you kind of revitalize. You're not revitalizing Oklahoma State wrestling. It's, okay, keep it going, and can you get us back to the level that it was, basically.
Yeah, that would be that'd be pretty incredible if he could, especially if it's done anytime quickly. But who knows? I'm hopeful from everything you've told me about wrestling. Is there any guys here who could win the national championship? Just single guys, eligible to do so, you think?
Yeah, for sure. Wyatt Hendrickson is still going to be in talk. I said that Air Force transfer. And just he's able to, he talked, it's a chore, right? Competing at an Air Force academy, at a military academy. And he was talking about, he's like, it's kind of easy. He's like, back in the day, or, when he was at Air Force, he was telling us it was, hey, you got to do this, this, this. Here's your hour and a half or 2 hours to worry about wrestling. And then you got to go do this, this, and this. And he's like, now I'm here, and it's, hey, do whatever you want for wrestling, and we'll fit the other stuff in later. He's like, I can get to practice an hour early and start recovery. I can stay at practice an hour late if I need to. On top of what people don't realize in other sports as well is how big of an asset it is to have. When David Taylor's competing against the best in the world, he's training against these college kids. Like, that's who they get to train with. It's not like, again, Mike Gundy or Steve Lutz saying, do this, do that, and pointing you in direction and trying to coach you up. He's in there. I think we talked about it when he first got hired. Like, imagine Derrick Henry being the coach and coming to run against a defense. Like, and that's going to obviously make the defense a lot better, where he's not only coaching you, but you're trying to get him down. And so Wyatt Hendricks got to work out with him some. Dustin Plott was a national runner-up last year. Parker Keckheisen is incredible. That's who beat him in the finals, the Big 12 finals and the NCAA finals. He's really good. But again, Coach Taylor talks about, he's like, Dustin Plott's reached another level because that's who, when he went to the U.S. national or the U.S. Trials, he took Dustin Plott with him as his partner. Like, that's the main guys he's been training with. He took Braden Thompson with him to Albania just because it was too close to the season. He didn't want Dustin Plott going across the world for right before the season started. But he's reached another level, and because he has been able to train and just to see what he does, like to see what it takes of, obviously David Taylor's going to be another level athletically and just a skill, but the level of just work it takes to be one of the best in the world it has raised Dustin Plott too. So I could see Dustin Plott. That would maybe the only way to get him to the level of being able to take out a guy like Parker Kikeisen as well for a national title.
Wow, it sounds like it could be incredible, but also set up to be a little more optimistic about this wrestling season as opposed to the rest of the football season or even next football season. So love to hear it. All right, well, one more question here about football here before we wrap it up. Do you have a prediction for this weekend, the TCU Oklahoma State match? I should say match game. We're just talking about wrestling, but yeah, in Fort Worth. I know TCU's favored because we're not favored for any of our 3 final games of the season. But that being said, yeah, what do you think happens this weekend here?
Oh man, I haven't got to predictions yet since it's only Monday, but I would. I mean, if I had to publicly when I do have to publicly put my prediction out there, I would have TCU winning. Again, like I said, I'm not going to pick this team to win a game unless there's a miracle that happens on defense. If I had to pick, what is the spread? Is it really 12.5? They're 12.5 point favorites. TCU? Golly. Like the offense being better, they score. I would say OSU 24, TCU 38. Not quite. They don't have quite the bulldozer that Arizona had. I just had predicted Scatterby would just do whatever he wanted. TCU doesn't quite have that. But again, not only do I think they'll win or that OSU will lose, I just at this point, I can't even see games being close because of that defense.
Yeah, honestly, it's one of the more confounding things I've had in my Oklahoma State fandom. I mean, Loyal and True's got the photo the other day, at least pulled up on my phone here. I was looking through some older photos, and I still can't believe that. Yeah, I've been watching photos since it was Lewis Field, or watching games since Lewis Field, and now we're all the way at the point where I'm the least optimistic I've ever been as a Oklahoma State fan headed into the final 3 games of the season. I mean, even the 7-6 season was like, hey, you know what? Mason Rudolph's going to be out there. Like we're going to head into that kind of season. Or when it was 7-6 and Spencer Sanders, it was like, well, you know what? But like there'll be something new that happens, towards the end of the season. We'll see some more guys. This is pessimistic, but maybe Sanders will come back and kind of save the rest of the deal and we'll still make a bowl game. But this isn't even bowl game possibilities. I mean, this is, and then also go back to that 7-6 with Mason Rudolph. It was like I didn't think at all we'd get to a bowl game that year. So we had to beat OU to go to a bowl game. I mean, it just seemed crazy. But then again, we at least got to see a new quarterback in the system that was going to be pretty darn proactive. And I see Bowman playing down the stretch. I don't see Malachi Smith being the starter named the starter tomorrow, and all of a sudden we're off to the races. And it's like, whoa, what are we gonna do? Because honestly, he might be fighting for it's probably up for grabs completely the quarterback position heading to this offseason. I mean, I have a hard time believing it's not gonna be completely open, and Smith's gonna be the only guy who has any reps, besides of course Garrett Rangel, but Flores won't have any reps, even though I think he's the guy with the most hype, I would say. And he's older than Smith, so I'd also think that gives him a little bit leg up on Smith. But then Rangel coming back, theoretically, he's played pretty darn decent in the one game where he was actually starting from the beginning and was kind of set up well. So who knows? Well, Dekota, I know where everyone can find you, but I know your Twitter handle in X is not at Calvin Glen or at Marshall Scott. Okay, I know it's at Dekota Gregory. But of course, where can everyone else, kind of read your stuff here and view your articles and work? What websites and stuff?
Yeah. So my name is spelled wrong, in case you guys didn't know that. It's Dekota.
Wait, is it actually spelled wrong, or was it meant to be spelled Dakota?
No, it's going to be like that. Everyone else is spelled with A. That's why I'm able to just have a unique. So if anyone, most time they go look for Dekota Gregory, they're going to put an A there. So it's Dekota Gregory. But yeah, I cover OSU for pistolsfireandblog.com, and this is probably the best time to start looking at our website. Even if you don't want football, if you're ready to move on, I dive into wrestling, and I've been covering for 10 years, and maybe I'm biased because he's one of my best friends, but I don't think there's a guy out there that covers the college basketball team that they cover better than Marshall does. As OSU starts in this new era under Steve Lutz. He was killing it when Mike Boynton was here, so I imagine He'll continue to build that relationship with Steve Lutz and get you the best coverage you need for basketball. So, even with football season ending, even though it's doom and gloom for the next 3 weeks, we'll have you covered till March for sure. So all the hype for wrestling and the newness of basketball will all be there.
And women's basketball and softball and baseball and equestrian and get all Devin's great photos of the games. Those are what I look forward to most now, is because I'm like, oh man, Devin's just killing it on the photography aspect here for Pistons Firing, because football games,
he'll be at everything.
Yeah, the football games do not end with the score I'd want them to, but man, it looks good on the photos aspect afterwards, at least. So shout out to Devin there as well too. Well, Dekota, thanks so much here for joining on the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast, and please follow, subscribe, like, comment, share, and thank you so much for all the new listeners, watchers, and everything in between. We'll catch you guys soon.